Hello and welcome to Adarx Farms. Today we're going to take a look at a mod that was recently released to the mod hub called Fill Level Dashboard. And this mod was released as a prefab because you have to do a little bit of work to add it into your vehicle of choice. This mod is going to add an in-cab monitor where you can look at the fill level and mass of whatever's in your attached implement. The primary use for something like this would be to see how many bushels and pounds are in the attached grain cart or trailer that you're pulling behind your tractor. So once you've downloaded the Fill Level Dashboard mod, you're going to want to go ahead and extract that so that we can work with the files that are inside the zip file. I've already done that here, and you can see that we have a number of different files, but we also have a PDF file included in this mod. This PDF file has step-by-step instructions of how to add this mod into a vehicle. However, a lot of people that I've talked to find that following along in a video is a lot easier, and so after talking to Perma's, I agreed to make this tutorial video based on the instructions that he's already included. The first thing we need to do is identify which mod we want to add the monitor to. In our case, we're going to use Sid Modding's 2020 series tractors. And so I've got that mod here. I'm going to right click on that and extract all. Once we have that extracted, we need to go back to the fill level dashboard prefab that we extracted earlier. And in here, we're going to see that there's two different pre-made monitors that we can use, either a horizontal orientation or a vertical orientation. We're going to use the horizontal orientation for this example and grab the i3D file, the shapes file, the fill level dashboard.lua file, and the monitor textures folder. We're going to copy all four of those items into the tractor that we're going to add them to. And we can do that just by highlighting and dragging them over to this window, or you could use Control-C and then Control-V to copy and paste them into this folder as well. With those files copied over, we're going to start by making a quick change to the mod description.xml file. You can open this file with any text editor. I prefer to use Notepad++, and with the file open, we're going to look and see if there's a specializations section anywhere in this file, which I don't see. And so if we go to the guide Perma's provided, he has an example of the specialization section, and we're going to just copy the example that he's provided and paste that into our mod description.xml file. I'm going to do that just above the vehicle type section here. It doesn't really matter where it goes, as long as it's not inside another section that's already been defined. This is going to allow us to reference this fill level dashboard.lua file, which really controls how the mod works. The next thing that we're going to look for in this file is to see if a custom vehicle type has been defined. In our case, we have this vehicle type section here with a custom vehicle type of Tractor 8R US that has already been defined with a handful of specializations. Once again, if we reference the guide that Perma's provided, he gives you an example of how to add a custom vehicle type into your mod if needed. In our case, since we already have a custom vehicle type defined, we really just need to copy this one line for the specialization for fill level dashboard and add it in. If you needed to create your own custom vehicle type, the one recommendation that I have is not to leave the name as custom type. This name should be something that's unique that won't conflict with other mods. So you can see here in Sid's example, he named it Tractor 8R US. So back to adding the specialization, we've copied it from the PDF file. And so all we have to do is paste that specialization in here where it says specialization name fill level dashboard. And so that's going to tell the game that we want to load up the specialization that we added here above into this particular tractor. With those two changes done, we can go ahead and save this file and move on to the next step. Back in our mod folder, we're going to find the tractor we want to add this to, which in our case is the Adarx series i3D, and double click on this to open it up in Giants Editor. With your mod loaded, you're going to go to the file menu, select import. You may need to navigate to the directory that has your mod that we've unzipped here. And once you're there, you're going to find the monitor that you added and double click on that i3D file. In our case, it's the horizontal monitor here. Once it's imported, you'll see a transform group here added to the bottom of the list called monitor. If you click on it, you'll see that it highlights where that monitor is. What we need to do is drag this into place. We're going to put it on the right window of the tractor here. If you're new to Giants Editor, you can move around within the scene by holding down the right mouse button and then using the WASD keys to kind of move around as if you were walking in the game. And so if I come over here to the side, you can see underneath that tractor, that monitor is sitting down there really low. And so what I want to do is bring that up to where the window is here. So I can do that by mousing over that green arrow until it turns yellow. And that's going to let me grab onto it and kind of drag it up here to where I can work on it. And then we're going to go into the tractor cab here. And I'm going to continue to use these arrows that are on each side of the mod to kind of drag it into the place where I think this should go. Now, one thing you'll notice is this monitor appears to be backwards. The peg to mount it to the glass is here on the back. And so I want to rotate this monitor around. And so you can see that there's these little rings around the sphere here. And so I'm going to put my mouse on this one, and you can see once it turns yellow, I can grab onto that and then drag that circle around until the monitor is facing the direction that I want it to face. And you can see on the right here that we're changing our rotation of our y-axis when we do that. And so I can see just based on those numbers that I probably want this rotation to be at 0. And that's going to have this monitor square up with this glass very nicely. So I'm going to continue to move this monitor into place. And since this is a grain cart monitor, I'm going to want this to be on the right window, so that when I'm looking out the back window at our trailer, the monitor is going to be pretty close into view. The other thing that we want to do is make sure that this monitor is kind of pressed up against the glass here. So I'm going to kind of move my camera until I'm looking at the back of this monitor where it meets up with the glass. And I'm going to try and find that right spot. Now, working with glass can be a little bit difficult, so I'm going to kind of get in here and realize that the glass lines up with the divide here between the black and the brown texture here. And so I'm going to drag this monitor back a bit until this peg is in about the right spot. And you can notice the peg is tipped a little bit. And so I want to tip this monitor down so that that peg is kind of straight on the glass there. And if I kind of look around, I want to make sure that it's not coming through the glass. It can be a little bit tricky working with glass because glass is hard to see when you're doing this, but you just want to make sure that you're getting it as close to that glass as you can without it sticking out through the glass, or it's going to look really weird in game. If needed, you can also come up here and adjust the numbers directly. And so in this case, I think I got it just a little bit too close to the glass. So I'm going to adjust the x-axis here a little bit and go to a -7.4 instead of a 7.5. And I think that's going to be better. I don't look like I'm going through the glass anymore. And so I'm going to just accept these numbers. If you want to check and see what this is going to look like when you're actually in cab in the tractor, you can come up to the view menu and go to camera and change to the indoor camera. And then it's like I'm sitting in the tractor. And then when I hold the right mouse button down, it's just like when I turn my head in game when you're in cab. And so I think right here, this looks like it's a pretty good spot for this monitor. I'm going to be able to see it when I'm looking out the right-hand monitor. I feel like it's in a good spot here. Once you're done getting this monitor into position, the last thing that we need to do is move the monitor item up into the appropriate component in the scene graph. And so if I click on the Series 8R main component, you can see that I've highlighted the actual tractor. I need the monitor to be part of one of the mod components rather than just on the bottom of the list here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the monitor. And then if I hold down my middle mouse button, I can drag this up until I've highlighted the Series 8R main component as blue and drop that in here. And then once that monitor's there, the only thing we really need to do now is take note of the index path of the screen, HUD fill level, HUD fill mass, and HUD weight volume items. I find the easiest way to do this is to just open Notepad and take a couple of quick notes. I'm going to type screen here for the screen element. And then I'm going to come over here to where it says index path, and I'm going to copy this value and then just paste it into this file. You'll notice as I do this, the numbers are going to be in a sequential order. So for screen, we've got 031. For the remaining three, you'll notice we have 033, and then HUD fill mass is going to be 034. HUD weight volume is going to be 035 if you just follow that pattern through. We're going to use these values in the next step. At this point, we're done with the Giants editor, so you can go ahead and go to File, Save, and then close out of Giants editor. Back in the mod folder, our last step is to edit the Adarx series.xml file, and our first step is to look through this mod and identify if there's an i3D mappings section. In most mods, this is going to be the very last section in the mod, and you can see that here we have a ton of these i3D mappings inside of an i3D mapping section. And so if we refer back to Perma's guide, you can see that he's provided the necessary attributes that we need to add into the i3D mapping section. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy the 4 lines inside of the section and add them here right at the top. This is where the node IDs that we just captured are going to come in handy. If we refer back to our notepad file, you can see that our screen item was at 031. And so we're just going to replace the values that were there previously for each of these 4 items. And so once you've updated these items, just make sure that you didn't make any typos, as this will prevent the mod from working correctly. The next thing that we need to do is look for the dashboard section in the mod. In this case, it's conveniently located right above the i3D mappings section. Most vehicles should have a section like this already. And what we need to do is add additional dashboard configurations here inside of this default category for our display specifically. Again, if we refer back to the guide file that Perma's included, you can see here we have the 4 lines that we need. And so we're going to copy these 4 lines from this default section and place them into the same default section that exists already in our mod. And these are going to tie back to the i3D mappings for the screen, HUD fill level, HUD fill mass, and HUD weight volume. The last step that we need to do is to add the fill level dashboard section to our mod. This is a new section that won't exist already. Permas has provided the example in the PDF file once again. And so all you need to do is copy this entire section that you see in the guide and come in here and find a spot in the mod where you can add this. I'm going to add it right here above our i3D mapping section at the very bottom of the mod. And just make sure that when you put this in, you're not placing it inside of another section, that it's going out here on its own. This section integrates with the unit convert mod and allows you to define the volume unit and the weight unit that you want to use to display on the dashboard. And so by default, it's set up for a North American US style unit convert configuration, which is going to display bushels for the volume as well as pounds for the weight unit. The other configuration that you can change here is the precision, and this will determine how many decimal places are shown on the monitor for that particular unit, whether that's fill level, fill weight, or weight volume. With these changes made, you simply need to save the file, and then we're ready to go back out and test our mod. In order to test our mod, I recommend zipping these files back up by highlighting all of the files in the folder and send to compress zip folder. Once it's zipped the files, you'll be able to rename this back to your original mod name. And then I like to cut and paste this back out into my mod folder by highlighting it and pushing Control X, and then coming out here and pressing Control V and replacing the original mod with our newly updated mod. And then to make sure there's no conflicts from having the same mod in my mod folder twice, I'm going to go ahead and delete that folder that we'd created earlier. Jumping into the game here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our mod in the store here. And you can see that we've added the monitor and it shows up in the store as well. And so we've gone ahead and bought this tractor as well as a grain cart. So if we jump into our tractor here, you can see that the monitor is off by default. When we start it up, it fires up the monitor just like all the other screens and displays in the tractor, and it's looking pretty snazzy. So let's go ahead and hook up to this grain cart, and we're going to use the developer tools to go ahead and put some grain into our grain cart. You can see that the monitor is updated to show that we have 1,305 bushels, which matches up with what we have displayed in the lower right hand corner, and it's converted that into pounds. So we have 79,000 pounds of grain in our grain cart now. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful in adding a monitor to your grain cart tractor. If you do have questions, feel free to join the Adarx Farms community Discord server, where myself and others, including Perma's modding, are pretty active in helping anyone in the community with troubleshooting issues with their mods, modding questions, mapping questions. We have a number of different personalities on the server, including several modders, mappers, and people like myself that just like to tinker. That's all for today. Adarx out.